Hey, what's up everybody? Jason here. Thanks for checking out the channel today. So don't mind my voice and don't mind if I hack up a lung through this. I'm just getting over a bit of a cold, but I wanted to get this video out and show you how to create a reusable single shot prompt AI infrastructure in Bubble.io. So you've probably used sites where they have data input fields and there's a little generate with AI button. So I'm going to show you how to build that and make it infinitely reusable for just about anything on your site. So here's a quick example about how I use it. So I have events on my main production site where my trainers can go in and add their events and things like that. Super simple feature, so they can just generate a teaser here. And it looks like a really simple feature on the outside, but there's quite a bit of stuff that we need to build. So let's hop over to Miro here. These are the things that I plan to build for this. So first, I want the user to be able to revert to their original content. So just in case they don't like it, I want them to be able to regenerate things as many times as they want. Obviously want to track the usage and store the responses so I can see the quality of the responses. And next, other things that I'm probably never going to build, but maybe I will, who knows, user feedback rating system. So after they click on generate, they can rate that response. Email the usage detail to me, and then allow the user to modify the prompts. And then later, I'm probably going to do some auto log cleanup. And while I was talking, I was thinking another interesting thing to do would be to add more shortcuts. So things like shorten this, lengthen this. So basically, after it generates the content, you can again click from a bunch of different options and get some other customization, which who knows. So I'm just going to focus on the stuff for now because this is kind of the bare minimum that I think I would need to do to implement this feature, and then based on usage I might kind of do some of that other stuff. So here's the things that you need to build. You should be familiar with the API connector. You're going to need to create an OpenAI platform account. I'm going to use the response API. Logs is optional. I'm going to build that, and all I really want to store is the message that is sent to OpenAI and then their response, just so I can see. Now, this system prompts, this is the thing that is going to make this infinitely reusable. So instead of having to type those prompts into those little boxes in Bubble, which I'll show you in a second, I'm going to store them and use replacement variables, and that's going to allow me to make this thing basically infinitely reusable. So this is going to have a name, so I know what it is. This is going to have a description. There's going to be a default prompt. There's going to be instructions, and then I'm going to use a shortcode. And I use shortcodes in a lot of these types of things in Bubble. So when I'm doing a do search, I can do search for this based on a shortcode, and I don't have to go in and copy and paste the unique ID or do any other types of things. I find it's just faster to build things that way. The other thing is the interactions table, and this is essentially the usage. So I already have this built, but this is basically going to store the interaction that the user does, which in my case it's AI. And then there's going to be an interaction subtype. And then for this one, it's going to be content generation. And then I'm going to have a notes field, which is event teaser or something like that. So basically, this is going to allow me to see the usage. Now, I use this on my site already, so I'm not going to build this in this demo, but this is the way that I'm going to approach building this. So the next thing to think about is the actual widget itself. So I'm going to have a label. So for example, on the demo I just showed, it's going to be the event teaser. There's going to be an input box, which is going to be the event teaser. And then some important things to do is I'm going to wrap these in a group. And this group is going to have some custom states. So the first custom state is going to be the original content. And this will allow me to revert it back to a previous state if I really need to. And that's all I'm really going to worry about right now. Okay, so the first thing is let's look at the API connector connection. So I'm going to be using the response API, and because it can do streaming, I don't want this to be streamed because it's just going to be a single shot prompt that sends a response to it. So I don't need to do any of the streaming there. So this is how this is set up. This is pretty simple. You can just copy and paste this from the OpenAI site. And if I wanted to extend this, I could go into my system prompt option here, and I could also put model. So that would allow me to make this customized for whatever model that the user wants to use, which I'm not going to worry about that yet because I want to see if people are actually going to use this first before making it super complicated. So I'm just going to be using GPT-4.1, and when you set this up, this is a good way to set up the body in the request that you're making. So you want to make sure you've got your your dynamic value without quotes, because you're going to be using the format as JSON safe option when you send it. So I've got some of my basic parameters here, and I've just got some test content here. Let's click on reinitialize, and it's going to give me the response. And in the output, what I'm going to be looking for is this option here. So when I get into Bubble and I'm processing that response, I want to look for the first thing in the output list, because it's always going to be 1. I'm going to look for the first thing in the content list, because there's always going to be 1. And I'm going to look for the text object. Okay, let's take a look at the things that I need to create. So this is my system prompts thing. I've been using this for a while, so I have been using the assistant ID for a few things. I'm going to be migrating all that stuff off, but I've got my default prompt, my description, instructions, name, and my shortcode. So here's what the data looks like for that field that I showed you. So the way I have this set up is, here's the instructions. So I've got, you are an expert in marketing and this, that, and the other. You're going to help users create content snippets, etc., etc. And the part that matters at the end is, you must only reply with the content, no other comments or details, as your response will directly be used in the section the user is asking for. This is important to put in the instructions, because if you don't, it's probably going to reply with, thank you for asking me to create this, that, and the other. Here's how I thought through it, and here's your piece of content. So you don't want any of that stuff. You just want the actual content coming back. Now, I 100% guarantee there's going to be cases where it sends back some gibberish, because OpenAI likes to change things, and your results may vary depending on what day you're using it. So far, it's all worked fine. And this is how all of my default prompts are going to work. And any content that I'm going to use, this is the prompt that's going to be sent. So I want a content limit. So I'm putting content limit because for that particular teaser field, the character limit is 140 characters. The section, so I'm telling it what section of the event that I want to use, because I'm going to use this for the teaser, for a short description, for detailed content. And here is what I'm using now. So I'm going to send them what the existing content is as well. I'm going to send them what the course name is, what the course description is, and then this is my custom content that I've put in for the event details. So this is going to give OpenAI enough context to generate something that is probably good enough, but the user will be able to obviously modify it once they actually see the output. And then the shortcode I'm using is event content, and this is just, it makes it easier for me to search for one certain thing. Okay, now here is the edit form. So all of these fields, I'm going to be adding it to probably the just the teaser and the description here, but for this video, I'm just going to go through how this was implemented for the event teaser. So the event teaser, these are in a group, and the reason why this is in a group is because you can't directly set input values from workflow. So what I need to do is I need to take the response and I need to put that into a custom state and then pull the custom state value into this input box. So this event teaser group has a custom state called AI response, and it also has an initial value response. So this is going to store what the value was when the page was loaded before it was saved, and this is going to store the response from OpenAI. So now I've got my input box here. Here's the conditions that are on that input box. So if the AI response is not empty, then set the content to the response Now the user's still going to have to save the form, so it doesn't save any of this stuff automatically. And then if you noticed when I hit the generate button, it switched the color to that yellow orange, and then it switched it to green when it was done. Just a visual notification so the user can see that it's done something without having to use like an alert box or something like that. Here's the conditions on the generate button. So I am also using hero icons, and that is what is making the spinner show up as well. So I've set a custom state just called state, and when the state is generating, it's going to show that spinner icon to show the user that it's doing something. Then when it's done, it's going to change it to a check circle, and then change the background color so they can just visually see that something happened. All right, so here's the workflow. Now the first thing it's going to do is it is going to set the initial value to whatever the current page event teaser was. This will allow the user to revert if they want to. You could do this on page load, doesn't really matter. But if you want to be able to undo, you need to store the original value somewhere, just in case they save it and they decide that oops, I didn't want to save that, I want to go back to the other version. So now I'm going to set the state of the button to generating, and that's going to make it not clickable, and that's going to make the little spinner show up. And then here is the prompt for the OpenAI thingy. So I search for a system prompt where the shortcode is event content. It's always going to be the first item. And I want the default prompt to go into the body message. And here's how the replacement values happen. So then after that, I'm using find and replace. Now this is what makes it infinitely usable, so I'm changing the content limit to at most 140 character limit. Now when I use this on the detailed content view, I might say at most 2 paragraphs or at most 500 characters or 300 words, whatever it is, and then you can just customize this. You could put this stuff in a data thing as well and make it insanely complicated, but this is probably good enough for what I'm going to use on the site. So that changes the content limit variable. Then the next one is the section. So this is the section that I'm using. Now, this is important for context in the prompt because it's going to know it's a teaser section, so it has to be short and punchy. The next replacement is the course name. So I'm getting that from the details on the page, so whatever course that event is. And then the next replacement variable is the course description. And this gives OpenAI more context about the type of event that it is, so it will give a better response. And then I finally have the event details. So if the trainer has typed in their own custom description, it will put that in there as well. And then I think that's it, or is there one more? Event details. Oh, there is one more. And then the existing teaser. So this is the existing teaser that the user has set up. And then if you remember from the OpenAI connector, let me go back here and just do a quick reminder. Do not put your quotes in here, because when you format as JSON, that's going to make it work with OpenAI. So it's just a lot easier. And because sometimes I may want to stream the responses and sometimes I won't, this is all I'm going to use the default. So this is always going to be set to false. So now, just in case there is some type of error, I'm using the error alert plugin here as well. You can handle errors however you want, but if it returned an error, just show the user that it returned an error. I'll probably put some better error tracking in here, maybe log it or send me a message or something like that. The next thing to do is to set the custom state on that group to be the response. So again, where I mentioned this is how you go through the response from OpenAI, I'm going to use the result from step 3. I'm using the body output, the first item, because there's always going to be one. And then within that, the next child is content, and I'm going to use the first item and then text. So that's just going to plunk just the text value. Next thing, I'm setting the button state to done, so it's going to show that nice green color and show them that it's finished. Pause for a second, and then I'm going to reset the teaser, and then now this is going to do the tracking. So I push all this stuff to Airtable, and then I've got a bunch of dashboards and stuff like that that shows me what people are using on their site. Actually, I did a video about that you can check out here. So the interaction type is AI. They generated the event teaser. This is the page they did it from. This is the time they did it from. And then I can put the note in here if I want some other extra information. Okay, so let's generate the undo feature here. So I'm going to use an icon here, and I'm going to use this one. Let's change this to blue. Let's update the size. Make it a little bit smaller, center it. So for this, I'm going to set this to not be visible on page load, and I only want this to show when the custom state in the event teaser is not empty. So that means it knows that the user has tried this before, and then they might want to undo. So let's just quickly test this out. All right, so no icon. I hit generate. It's going to generate a response, and boom. So now I've got my little undo button here. So let's do the action for there. So I'm going to create the workflow, and what I want to do is I want to set the state of an element. I want to set the state of the event teaser. I want the AI response to equal the event teaser initial value. And then just to keep this video simple, we've reverted the content. You can put a better message there. So now let's reload this. Okay, so note that here's what it is. Transform how you lead change. I'm going to hit generate. So it's a little bit different. I can hit undo, and it put it back to the original state. All right, thanks for watching the video. Remember to hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment below if you've got any questions about how to implement this on your site. Thanks for watching.